Boston. Welcome. Today is the first online chef series from the Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation. We're used to doing these at the clubs, but since we can't be at the clubs, we'll do them virtually so you can follow at home and make some of the great recipes we've been sharing with you all throughout the year. I wanted to take a minute to talk about nutrition. So I printed up, because I'm staying at home, a Dorito label. So I like to show this when we talk about nutrition because it has things in here that we don't know what they are, right? Like disodium inosinate and disodium guanylate. Other things that make me question what we're eating. Monosodium glutamate, I know what it looks like, but what is it? Yellow 6, yellow 5, red 40. All of these kind of weird things that we'd find in here. So we're going to talk today about healthy substitutions. We'll be making a black bean brownie, but if you've ever cooked anything with me before, you know the first step in the kitchen, especially right now, is hand washing. So when you wash your hands, you want to make sure you're getting front, back, and you can sing whatever song you want. There's all these cool songs now, but the whole thing should last for 30 seconds. The scrubbing part should last for 20 seconds. You want to get a nice lather, make sure you're getting in between your fingers, make sure you're getting the backs of your hands, and make sure you're using water that's 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which should feel warm on your skin. And it's nice when it's a little cold out to have some warm water. That's the other piece too. Okay, use your arm, and then dry it off with a towel. So we're gonna make black bean brownies today. And we have everything we need over here. First things first, 8 by 8 inch square pan. You can use a different size or something a little different. When it says to grease a pan, what you do is you take a tiny bit of oil and you make sure you grease it. That means getting up on the sides. And the reason we do this, grease is slippery, right? We wanna make sure that whatever we're baking or cooking doesn't stick inside of the pan. Okay, so here we go. And now I'm gonna walk through all the ingredients. This recipe is super easy because we basically put all of the ingredients except for one into a food processor or a blender. I'm gonna pop them in a blender today. So, first thing is quick oats. You want a half a cup of quick oats. If you don't have quick oats, you can use regular oats. Quick oats tend to just cook a little faster, and what you'll notice about them versus regular oats is that they're ground really finely, so they cook more quickly. But this recipe, and I've made it several times, works well without it. I like to do, so we do that. We do a half cup of sugar. I have brown sugar here. You can use white sugar. Either one's fine. In the food processor. This is actually a can of black beans. I rinsed it off very well before I put it in here, but it's one 15-ounce can. That goes in here as well. Oil, we have a 1/3 cup of oil. This is just a plain vegetable oil. And then one thing we're also gonna add, another thing we're gonna add is cocoa powder. Now one thing that happens every time we use cocoa powder is everybody wants to try this. This is unsweetened cocoa powder. It's gonna be bitter, and I want 2 tablespoons. Now, a tablespoon is this larger measure here. You can see how big it is, how wide this is. A tablespoon is gonna be larger than a teaspoon. So when you're cooking, it's very important to recognize the difference between both of these things, because a teaspoon will either be TSP in a recipe, it might be spelled out teaspoon, or it might be a small t. A tablespoon is TBP, a large T, or tablespoon. And that's how you can tell the difference. For this recipe, we want 2 tablespoons, 1, 2 of this unsweetened baking powder, unsweetened cocoa. We want a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and we want baking powder. Now, if you remember what I was talking about last week, we need to make sure we add the salt and the baking powder because our baking powder is our leavening agent. We want it to rise what we're working on. So 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Everything goes in, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna grind it up. All right. And in the meantime, you can hydrate. You want this to be nice and smooth. still see some clumps in there, so I'll let it go for a little bit longer. Good. Last step. We greased our baking pan before we put it in. I'm going to take the time to really smooth it out here. And so what I want to talk a little bit about while I'm fishing all this stuff out is what we've used. So the oats act as the flour, so this has no flour in it, right? The black beans act as a binder, so they're basically acting like eggs. The oil adds fat to it so that it does have good flavor. The sugar obviously adds sugar. There are other recipes that use maple syrup, which you're also welcome to use, but it's much more expensive, especially if you're stuck at home. And then we also have the baking powder, as I mentioned, as a leavening agent. All right, so I have that all in there. Last but not least, we put chocolate chips all over the top of it. And I would say not to forget this part because it's kind of important. We're going to bake in the oven at 375 for about 10 minutes. And then the last time I did a video, I was told that the most disappointing part of my video was that nobody got to see me eat the final product. So this time around, I pre-baked some brownies so you can see what the final product looks like. And I will eat it on camera so you guys will be excited about trying it yourself. Excellent. Stays in there for about 10 minutes. Pop it in your fridge so it's nice and cool, and you have black bean brownies. Bye guys, see you soon.